I'm Alan Combs, always delighted to have with us on the program Congressman Ron Paul. Dr. Paul is leaving Congress after this term. He served during the late 70s, early 80s, then returned in 1997 to represent the 14th Congressional District in Texas. 1988, he was the Libertarian Party candidate for president. Also the author of several books, including Challenge to Liberty, The Case for Gold in a Republic, If You Can Keep It. By the way, you've done some great cookbooks, too.
Oh, yeah, that's my wife did those, and we kid a lot about that. I always say that, why are you going to do such a silly thing as a cookbook? But then it turns out she probably got more votes for me than I got for myself.
I know about that. Are you disappointed with the results of this election?
Well, not in any way. I mean, it was probably exactly what I expected. I remember a couple of days before the election, predict what this outcome. And I said the status quo is going to win.
Yeah.
So, from my viewpoint, where I want less war and better protection of civil liberties and free markets, the status quo, is we still have it. We still have the deficits, and they're going to argue for a while longer. So, I guess I wouldn't say it's disappointment. I mean, it's disappointing, I guess, that we don't ever shift gears, but it wasn't unexpected.
You didn't think it would make a difference whether it was Obama or Romney who got elected, right?
No, not really.
Did you vote for Gary Johnson?
I'm not telling.
You haven't answered that question, huh?
No, I haven't answered it. It's a little bit late now.
What do we do about the fiscal cliff? How do we can we avoid it? And I know you've said it's already happened, but what's the path that should now be taken by Congress and by the president?
Well, I think if you're in a deficit crisis and a debt problem that you have to cut back on spending, if you or I got into serious trouble, we would have to say, well, if we're ethical, we'd want to pay off our debt. So what we would do is we'd get two jobs and we cut back spending and get out of the mess we're in. Governments are different. They never do that. They always just keep borrowing more and printing more and making the problem that much worse. So I would get out of it by cutting back. But during the campaign, I emphasized, some priorities, and my idea would be to get people to agree on the overseas spending, because our debt in the last 10 years probably went up over $4 trillion just from the militarism and the wars, and that's going to be ongoing when you think of all the men and women that have come back that are suffering and all the seriously wounded and this. And I would think we could save a lot of money, and we don't have to go immediately after the entitlement system or child health care. Of course, as a libertarian, I don't think those are good ideas. I think they usually end up the way they are today, cost too much, and services get rationed, and people are worse off. But I still think that in this message that I gave, and this was well received on the campuses, the young people inheriting this mess, they know that wars are useless, and they know that spending doesn't make any sense, and they were very open to my views on the Federal Reserve System, too.
So it seemed, in your view, perhaps if we went off the fiscal cliff, that wouldn't be such a bad idea if no deal were made, right?
Well, it's going to be bad if it doesn't wake us up. If it wakes us up, it's good. It's good that the Soviet Union went off the cliff and they had to retrench and they went back home and they quit invading these countries. So I think when it's admitted and the world says that the United States is broke and they can't afford it, we're tired of loaning them money, we're going to have to come home because we won't be able to afford it. Because I think then they'll say, well, we better take care of the people here at home rather than fighting these senseless wars. And I think this was one of the things that actually hurt Romney. He wanted to spend $2 trillion more on military, and I always think the candidate that sounds like he's better for peace wins the election. And Obama actually softened his stand, and yet his policies, aren't very peaceful.
We had a surge in Afghanistan. He went into Libya. That's where I differ from the president. When I think your message, which resonates with me in terms of troops, and you've talked so often about all these military bases we have based on the geopolitics of World War II. Around the world, we could save how many dollars there? I mean,
and also, as soon as you have this war attitude and you end up with carelessness about civil liberties, now we have a president that can have kill lists and assassinate American citizens and trials and put in prison without a trial. I mean,
anybody can be declared an enemy combatant. And how about the Defense Authorization Act, where the homeland is declared a battlefield? Basically?
And military can arrest people. So, but this is why I see, that there's too much bipartisanship. Both parties endorse the system. I mean, if people are honest with themselves, the foreign policy didn't change from Bush on to Obama. The civil liberties were abused by Bush, and they're abused by Obama. Spending, I mean, do conservatives, they have the reputation for cutting, but they never cut. Matter of fact, they took a position that deficits don't matter. That was the supply-siders. I think deficits do matter, even though in the short run people think they can keep borrowing. But governments eventually get into trouble. If an individual gets into trouble, the bank quits giving them any more loans, and they have to quit. But governments only quit when they ruin the money, and we're capable of doing that.
We're talking with Dr. Ron Paul. You obviously still have a lot to say, and you've had a very consistent message for a long time now. Any second thoughts about leaving Congress at the end of this term?
No, matter of fact, I'm sort of looking forward to a little bit different schedule, but I'll get to do the things I've been doing, and hopefully I can get back to college campuses. I think that's where the action is. You can't have revolutionary changes without young people endorsing it. I believe they're very open to some of the many things I've talked about.
But you obviously want to still be part of the political discussion. You want to be part of the dialogue that's going on.
Yeah, at least on policy. I have a foundation, and the foundation is going to concentrate on foreign policy. I had dinner last night with Dennis Kucinich, and we're good friends, and we'll be working together and trying to, show that that somebody who calls himself a progressive and a libertarian can get together, Republican and Democrat, and agree on some of these things.
Some of us dreamed of a Kucinich, Paul, or maybe the other way around, ticket about 4 years ago, right?
No, some people said that, but I think that's not likely to happen. But we can still work together, since we'll both be out of Congress now.
I've been also fortunate enough to have your son Rand on the program a few times, and is he carrying the torch now of your message, do you think, going forward? And there's talk of him running as a candidate in 2016.
Well, we haven't talked about that, but I hope he sticks basically to the principles of liberty, and I believe he will. But it has to be more than Ron Paul and Rand Paul. I mean, if this is significant, you have to have literally thousands of people involved, and you have to have an intellectual change. And that's what I'm interested in more than the politics, and that's probably why I never became a major committee chairman, because I was sort of bored with that. But hopefully a few people got to thinking about monetary policy and foreign policy.
Let me ask you about the secession movement, and your belief is that it's patriotic, in fact, and it's called for in our founding documents that states certainly have the right to speak up. But are you surprised by the number of people who've signed petitions on the White House website since the election?
Yeah, a little bit. It just seemed like that popped out of nowhere, but many of us have believed, and if people read history honestly, it was sort of understood. But the numbers of people signing up, that sort of surprised me. But those people who try to paint us as a little bit off the wall by saying yes, the principle of secession should be there, we should be able to leave. I wonder what they would say about, what if Greece today wanted to leave the European Union? Do we say that the European Union ought to invade Greece and destroy them, and kill them all because they're leaving?
So do you have empathy or sympathy, at least, for those who want to secede and for states who might?
Oh yeah, I think that principle is a very good principle. But one thing where I get hesitant about it, because I don't take the position that Texas should succeed, I'm not going to lead that, because you have to look at what the states are doing. Maybe the state officials are going to abuse the system just like in the federal government, so you have to know what you're substituting it for. So for me, it's more important to understand free market principles and why we don't need these wars and why we have a government that protects civil liberties. And if, the states can be very abusive too.
Yeah. We're going to have a moment left. Let me take a quick call here for Ron Paul. Rob in San Jose. Go ahead, Rob. Quickly, go ahead.
Hi, yes. First of all, I just want to say that I so wish that Dr. Paul would have been the nominee. Actually, I wish he would have been the third-party nominee, which leads me to my question. What can we do to get a viable third party in this country? Because the two parties are just
Okay, we're only about 30 seconds here. Let's get an answer. Go ahead. Thank you, Rob.
Well, that would be nice, and I've worked in that area. I've tried to change the rules, but it's not going to happen in the near future because the Republicans and the Democrats write out the rules. Guess who runs the debates? The Republican and Democratic Party. So it's very biased. You can't get on the ballots. You don't get recognized by the media.
And that was Gary Johnson's frustration, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just we go over and send kids overseas and get killed trying to promote democracy, and there's a lot of shortcomings here in this country. That's my argument. We got to clean up our mess.
Dr. Paul, I appreciate having you on very much. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Good.
Thank you so much.